What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me again this week. I'm very happy to bring you part 2, finally, of taking a digital sketch and finishing traditional. During part 1, we projected our digital sketch onto a large sheet of paper. We did all of the line work, and then we did it with black marker. And part 2 was supposed to just be, this kind of quick coloring process. But the coloring process turned out to be exceptionally time-consuming, and that is just because I picked such a huge sheet of paper, and markers only have so fat a nib, so it's a lot of little squiggling, and it takes a lot of time. So this video is longer than I think it should be, because this piece took a lot longer than I think it should have. So we're going to do a little bit of a different format today. I'm going to be talking to you about the piece as we're going along. We'll see if this works out. I might do future videos like this if I like this format, and if you like this format, let me know in the comments, but let's get started. So, first things first here, I have to kind of establish what I'm doing, and I'm thinking in my head of creating kind of like a translucent body with, I want to say like a glowing like gel flesh. Japanese artists like to really mess around with kind of funky ideas, having like goo girls and stuff like that. I did see an artist who did, I guess, some fan art of a Dota 2 character, and it looked really cool because it inevitably just ended up becoming like a gel type body. I wanted to do that for this one too. So what I ended up thinking I was going to do was I was going to have the head as the hot point, maybe a little bit into the chest as a hot point, and it kind of cools off outwards from there. So like the hands will be cold, the arms and legs will be cool, and just the torso will be hot near the top. Because the gel itself is supposed to be the light source, the skeleton on the surface, which is closest to the top of the skin, that's going to be dark because the light's coming from behind it. I don't really know if that really worked out as well as I wanted it to. I think it kind of did, but it kind of didn't. And I think I can blame that almost entirely on the fact that I'm using markers and not paint. With paint I have a lot of flexibility. With markers you don't. Once you have a dark color down, it's very difficult to lighten it, if not impossible. You have to actually remove it. Later on I end up using a silver marker, which does cover up black, but that's not a correcting pen or something like that. And they might sell some solutions like a white marker, but then you're layering all these things. They don't really work out too well. The downside of marker is you have to know where you're putting stuff and put it where it's supposed to go. So anyhow, at this point I'm establishing a base color for the body. This is already into the cooler territory. I'm having a little bit of trouble filling in the body. I'm creating these little sections and then trying to fill in a large area. It's very difficult to you can't do these little squiggles in like a little section in boxes because it looks strange. So I thought I was going to kind of create these like hoop shapes and fill those in. So at this point I'm starting to fill in some cooler stuff. The hands are supposed to be cold, so I'm using a blue. Now the one thing that's nice about these chameleon markers is that like any decent quality marker, so a step up from the Sharpies, they layer very pleasantly, and these did. So not that I think you should buy the chameleon markers. I've got 2 videos explaining to you why you shouldn't, but I think they're not complete shit, right? So at this point, kind of darkening out portions of that skeleton a little bit more, kind of finishing up. I'm leaving a light spot where that second breast is, the one that's facing you, so that way there's a hint of it there. You won't be able to see any details because you shouldn't be able to see any details of the skin because it's totally translucent. So unfortunately, this clip, out of all of my clips, is the only one that was not properly focused. And it was a good half an hour of this, but I wanted to include it still. It's not half an hour for you, it was half an hour for me to do. You'll see it'll focus for the next clip pretty well. So at this point, I've got my wife is helping me a little bit. She's not an artist, but she likes, coloring. Adult coloring books are a huge thing these days, and she offered to help me out. See, now it's nice and crystal clear again. she offered to help me out, and I was very happy to take the help. As I'm starting to fill in all of this stuff, it starts to kind of get to me. I'm starting to feel a little bit more kind of beaten down by the piece, and having like someone to work with is a nice moral support, especially if you get along with them. And there's a reason we're married. We get along very well. So as I'm filling this in, I'm thinking that these things are going to connect in hoops around, but I notice right here something doesn't look right. And I follow this green around. You'll notice the green where she's working is supposed to connect with that green that now connects to the toe. So somewhere when I was making my lines, I messed up. Instead of having these perfect circles, these perfect hoops, even as rippled as they were, I ended up having a corkscrew effect. And I'm using 9 colors, if I remember correctly, and it's not even a section of 9 next to a clean section of 9, so it's a perfect corkscrew. It's an imperfect corkscrew, which means that there's too many in between this green, which I accidentally put down as yellow first. I noticed where I fucked up, but thank God the green goes over this yellow, so this mistake was luckily gone. There's not exactly the correct number of lines in between these two sections to create a perfect corkscrew, so problem on top of problem. At this point, I'm starting to feel a little bit like broken down, a little beaten by this piece, but I'm committed. At this point, I'm not going to know what it's going to look like till it's done. I'm just trying to be smart about it. You see I'm creating like these little starter lines in each section so I get the lines correct. And up top here, near the chain, my wife actually notices there's more problems. And I get to fixing that in a moment. I'm still... She doesn't mention it to me just yet, but she does notice it pretty soon. I'm still fixing the problems on the bottom, which is going to be on the right side of the screen for you. And she's telling me that this doesn't line up, and I'm like, alright, well, just fill that in over there. I'll get to fixing that in a minute. This is primarily because I should have waited for the chains. I think the chains are a really good addition to the piece, but they should have been like a later addition. I should have done the chains after I'd done all the color, because it's black on top of color. And that way I could have done those circles perfectly. I wouldn't have dicked those up at all. They would have been nice. And I could put them in such a way that it matches my ripples, instead of making my ripples match my chains, which I don't know if one would have been better than the other, but yeah. A couple glasses of wine to keep us going, because yeah, it was getting a little rough. So this piece ended up taking 3 weeks, and I don't know how many hours altogether it comes out. I think it's something like 10 to 15 hours, somewhere in that range. Each little clip that you see is half an hour of painting, or half an hour of coloring. So it's sped up 5,000%. If you got any math wizards out there thinking they can figure it out, not this whole video is 5,000%. It does slow down a little bit near the end when I'm doing some kind of finishing touches, so I could go back and figure it out, but it was a long time. Working with marker is a little different than working with paint and a paintbrush. I think when I was a lot younger, I was really enjoying working with pencils. I love drawing. Drawing was like my thing. Just give me a regular 2B pencil or 2H pencil, whatever the thing they would give you at school. I think it was 2H. And just some paper, and I would just have fun. I would just absolutely wear out the pencil to everything it's got. But my hands would cramp up, and part of the reason I got away from drawing so much is you have to like train yourself to relax and to only use enough strength to create a strong, confident line, just to create the line and not over crunch. And I still struggle with that now, and I do that quite a bit in this. So that's why they're only in maybe about half an hour to an hour sessions, and I'm not working through like 3-4 hours. Well, the painting pieces you see me do, I can sit for a good 3 hours, 4 hours painting those things, and a lot of them only take me all together maybe 5-6 hours. So it's only 2 sessions, and then, you know, video editing and all that stuff. This took me just a lot. It took a lot out of me, and I didn't really like exactly where the piece went. In the end, though, spoiler alert, I do like where the piece ended up. At this point in the painting, I'm liking the composition a little bit, but the more color I'm adding to these corners, the more I'm realizing that I liked it because of the white, but I can't leave the white. Like, I have to be committed to finishing the colors as they're supposed to go. And you'll notice, especially now, that the yellow lines that are spiraling around the piece are really competing with the character in the middle. She almost disappears. You don't look at her almost at all. She's supposed to be like the cornerstone of the piece, and like everything on the outside is supposed to be like a fun addition, but it wasn't really happening the more and more I was adding. So moving forward, I'm like, alright, I have to figure out something to fix this. I'm not exactly sure what. For now, I'm thinking to myself, I'll just finish out the lines and see where to go from there. As I'm getting closer to the edges, I'm getting a little bit more inspiration, or a little bit more enthusiasm to kind of finish the piece. Motivation, is the word I'm looking for. And I'm able to, like, I think I'm doing like 2-3 sessions at once, and I'm just kind of knocking out a lot. As I'm finishing up these little corners, I'm thinking to myself, alright, I know I have to finish these just to get the correct effect, but I already think that I have to do something different with the outside. I have to somehow change these colors. And I think to myself, alright, well, I can either relayer a new color on top. So right here, I'm like, alright, well, first things first, I have to knock out those yellow rings. So I take a cornflower blue, and I put it right on top of that yellow, and it turns out into like a slightly lighter green that I have next to it. And you can see on here that it's a slightly lighter. It's not that much lighter, but it does knock the whole background down a couple notches. And I'm like, alright, now the character's starting to pop out again, because the brightest point is now in the center of the piece. So it's starting to feel a little better, but still not good enough. So I bust out the black. One thing I liked about this earlier stage with the white is that there wasn't so much of the stuff. So I'm like, alright, I can't add white, but I can add black. So I'm still thinking that I gotta knock out some colors. So I start blending out this orange with other colors, see if I can like turn it into a better color. In the end, I end up with like a very rosy purple. Unfortunately, you can't see the difference here in the video, but in person, it's a subtle change, and it makes a big difference. Unfortunately, that just doesn't appear too well in the video. So I'm knocking out the corners here, a lot of detail, and knocking out that last little bit of yellow, which I forgot. A lot of detail, which we had spent, myself and my wife had spent a lot of time filling in. I'm now just blacking out, but I'm doing it in such a way where it looks like it still has hoops. Like there's a little bit of an illusion there. It doesn't look like a corkscrew anymore, and I got kind of lucky in that sense, where it looks like it makes sense. Just using the edges of the paper for my benefit here. So I'm thinking it's done, but I need one last little touch, one last little something to add to it. And one thing I like to do to a lot of my pieces is to add that little bit of metallic powder to it. So I toss in some airbrush medium, and I start spraying it on the piece here, trying to avoid getting it onto the face. And the airbrush medium is still a water-based medium, which means this paper is buckling. You can't see it too well, but I'm start getting very worried about how much it's buckling once it starts to bend. So I kind of try to dry it as quick as I can. This, I think, helped a lot. Taking the paper out, like down, shaking it out, trying to flexing the fibers a little bit as it's drying, and helping it dry by getting the air moving on it. So I'm just adding some black lines here to kind of embellish the difference between that black background, or the sprayed black background, and the character itself, so she pops out even more, which I think is very important for the piece. And it somehow it all kind of came together just like that. So I think overall I'm pretty happy with this piece. It was pretty painful going in, but I ended up with something that I really liked. And you know, I'm not really one to go with kind of psychedelic colors. I kind of like things within families, so it's either the whole piece is slightly warm or the whole piece is slightly cold. This thing is a little bit of both, but overall I think it came out really nice. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Probably not going to be hanging it up. Let's just see if I can find a nice plastic sleeve for it and maybe throw it into the Etsy shop if anyone's interested in it. I think the experience overall was really good. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked this video, please hit that thumbs up button. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more. And of course, until next week, happy painting.